All right, welcome. Let's just dive right into a topic that might seriously flip your whole idea of charity on its head. We're calling this one the philanthropist paradox, and we're going to explore that surprisingly thin line between doing good and, well, doing harm. I know, it sounds like a totally crazy question, right? I mean, since we were kids, we're told helping people is one of the best things you can possibly do. But what if that very act of trying to do good could somehow go bad, could curdle into something toxic? What if it could actually make you a worse person? Well, the key to this whole paradox, this whole puzzle, comes from this powerful little piece of writing, and it lays out a fascinating and, let's be honest, kind of terrifying argument about the psychology of service. So let's break it down and see what it has to say about the hidden dangers of trying to be a good person. Okay, so first things first, how does something that starts out so positive, like social service, get corrupted? Our source actually has a name for this: the trap of virtue. It's all about how good intentions can end up paving a road to a very, very different place than you expected. And according to this text, the entire process, this whole thing where good intentions go totally wrong, it all hinges on just one single crucial missing ingredient. Without this one thing, the whole effort is pretty much doomed from the start. So, what is it? The source calls it a spiritual outlook. Now, hold on, this doesn't necessarily mean religious in the way you might be thinking. It's more about a perspective, an inner attitude, you know? It's the mindset that keeps you humble, the thing that reminds you that you, the person helping, are also a work in progress. It's basically the ultimate antidote to arrogance. Okay, so that's the ideal, right? But what happens in the real world when somebody just jumps into service without that foundation, without that humility? What does that chain reaction actually look like? And wow, here it is, the downward spiral. It starts at step one. You're doing good work, but you're missing that spiritual outlook. Pretty soon, you hit step two. You get kind of obsessed with how good and virtuous you are. From there, it's a really short jump to step three. You start expecting not just praise, but even obedience from others. And all of that leads to the final step. This deep, destructive arrogance takes over. And this whole process, it builds to a conclusion that is just shocking. We're not talking about someone just becoming a little bit arrogant here. The source argues that the transformation is total. It turns the would-be helper into their absolute opposite, a destroyer. And what's really wild is how specific the consequences are. This isn't just a bad personality trait. It has devastating real-world results. They start calling themselves great philanthropists, but in reality, their attitude just pushes everyone away. Their ego makes them blind, so they make one mistake after another. And get this, in the end, their own lives become unbearable. And there it is, the single most chilling line in the entire text. This is the final stop on that downward spiral. The person who set out with the goal of doing good because they were fueled by ego instead of humility actually ends up causing harm. They become a destroyer. Just let that sink in for a second. Phew. Okay, that was pretty bleak, I'll admit it, but thankfully, the source doesn't just diagnose the problem, it also offers the solution. So this next part is all about the alternative path, the much healthier and way more constructive path of humility. And this lays it all out so clearly. The contrast is just, it's night and day, isn't it? On one side, without that spiritual outlook, you get obsession, expectation, and destruction. But on the other side, with that outlook, the whole game changes. You develop humility, you realize you can change and grow yourself, and that is what makes you a true helper. So to really drive the point home, the text says that two of the most vital human abilities are just lost without that grounding perspective. The first is humility. You know, the simple understanding that you're not the hero of everyone's story. And the second is the ability to change yourself, to actually see your own flaws and be willing to work on them. If we have to boil this whole thing down to one single core idea, this is it. It's not just about what you do, it's about why you're doing it. Your inner motivation, your ego, your self-awareness, that's the stuff that ultimately decides whether your actions are going to build things up or just tear them all down. So let's just do a quick recap of what we've pulled from this incredible text. First, good deeds can absolutely become destructive if they're running on the fuel of ego. Second, that spiritual outlook we keep talking about, that's the secret sauce for genuine humility. And finally, the real goal should always be the positive impact you have, not the personal praise you get.
And that really just leaves us with one final question to chew on, a personal one. After all this, what's the true test of our own good deeds? How can we check our own motivations? Is it about the warm, fuzzy feeling we get, or the actual, real change we create in the world? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me for this one.